1 minute to Kurt and Kermit. Let me just make sure that the microphone's working. Yes. Yep, the microphone's working.
Put in some extra music that's like, what?
No. Let's put on Gaura Prabhu's music, eh?
Maybe at the end. I went at the beginning, something more.
Then Gaura's one. Okay. What about this? Let's try this music. Nah. This? Boo. So we'll just do this. Some background music playing while we're speaking. Welcome to our one live viewer and to the millions of viewers, many of them not even born yet, watching this on the internet. My name is Sitapati Das.
My name is Dana Devi.
And this is Vaishnava Voices Podcast.
For all our grandchildren that is not born yet.
Exactly, future generations.
Exactly. Like that, yeah.
Yeah. So today we have as our guest, who will be coming shortly, Matua Anaru Gray. I'm going to open my email account in case he needs to communicate with us. If he's having any trouble to join, or if he needs to.
Do you have the message? The message him.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so what do you want to say before we start?
I'm looking forward for him to speak about his culture, the significance in the society, you know, and his connection to now, the present, to the future, and what he wants to transfer to the society.
Yeah, maybe. How about if I play a little bit of the movie?
Yeah, sure.
Which features him.
Yeah.
So people can get a sense of it. If you haven't seen the promo that I made with permission of the director of the movie, River of Freedom, Galen Barnes, I put a montage of 4 separate clips together. Let me see here. So I go into here, this one, and then I'll put it like this. Okay. Yeah. So I can share the screen, present, share the screen, and then I choose a browser tab and I say also share the tab audio, and here we go. Let's watch it. Okay, so watch the full movie at riveroffreedom.nz. So you can rent it or buy it to stream from YouTube, Vimeo, a bunch of places. It's on iTunes. I think it's on Amazon, Apple TV. Here it is. The montage.
I wanted to go down there. 3 reasons. One was to end mandates, which the convoy was wanting to do. The second one was I wanted to do it for my mokopuna. And the third one was to help the local hapu. I didn't know who the local hapu was, but that was my goal.
For our international audience who are not familiar with it, hapu means like a tribe, a local tribe. So he's talking about the local tribe, the traditional inhabitants of the area. And as we found out, there's a claim that this land that the Parliament grounds is on was never sold or ceded. So there's a traditional land ownership claim on the land itself as well. So not just the traditional inhabitants, but they would say, at least some people among them say, the traditional owners, or just flatly said, the owners of the land. So they said, you know, this is our land and we welcome you to be here.
Caretakers. Caretakers.
Yeah.
Caretakers is more like we don't own, but we protect, we care for it because this is...
And we live here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is our
they don't
land.
remotely own land that they don't live on. Anaru's joined us, so we're going to bring him in. Tēnā koe matua.
Kia ora.
Hare
Kia ora.
Krishna. Kia ora.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I was down the back of my property, and I tried to use my phone, and it wouldn't work, so I had to come back inside into the office.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Fantastic. We were just watching the River of Freedom film. The part where you were speaking about the 3 reasons why you came down to Wellington.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, thank you for coming on to the podcast to have this conversation with us. And
You're most welcome.
And also thank you for what you provided during the Parliament protest in 2022, for your presence there and what you brought, for your kaupapa that you brought. It was a very powerful contribution and an organizing principle for the protest. For the international audience, I wanted to start by asking you about the significance of the facial tattoos that you have, because we have a lot of people from outside of New Zealand, perhaps not familiar with our country and our culture. Yeah,
I'll
let people know about that.
I've got a bit of a light here that may help.
Epic.
So the facial the facial whether it's called drawings or tattoo, it's part of our ID, and so it paints a picture of my connections not only to the whenua or the land, but also to my ancestors, and my one also connects to my parents and my siblings, and also my children. So it's something that our ancestors did many years ago, and it's starting to come back. There are quite a few people are now putting this on their face as connections to their to their links, I suppose, to, as I mentioned, their ancestors and to their lands. And the woman, they have one just down here. It's called a kauai. So this is called a tāmoko. Some people call it kiri tui, and kiri means skin, and tuhi means drawing. So drawing on the skin. I completed mine, or I started mine in 2000. Sorry, that's my alarm to remind me that I'm on the podcast this morning. So I started this in 2003. So it's over 20 years ago, and I think it was about 3 years when I actually had the whole thing completed. Yeah, so that's a quick explanation about my facial tattoo or tāmoko.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. So we had we just showed the portion of the movie that introduces you, and you came down from Ngaruawahia which is on the western side of the North Island, sort of south of Auckland, for those who are not familiar with our geography here. And I wanted to ask you about, like, how did that come about? Like, I know that, we all met in Wellington and all the threads started to weave together, but there's like where that thread, where, like, could you just give us a sense of like, how did you end up there, like over the 2020, 21? What does that thread look like for you leading into Wellington?
I suppose I can start when the first notification of the isolation and lockdown back in I think it was February, March 2020.
First lockdown 2020, March 2020.
2020, and I actually just got into the country back from Houston at the end of February, and so I was lucky to get home. And so when that isolation started, it just didn't sit with me. I was lining up, going to get some groceries, and we had to be a certain distance apart. and I was wearing a mask and, trying to do what I needed to do. But after that visit, I thought, this isn't right. So from that day, I took the mask off, and I was rebellious like a lot of people. So what happened in 2022, I saw on Facebook, there was this convoy going down to Wellington. And what was the reason? To end the mandates. And I thought, oh, that's me. So from that point, I kept in touch with the convoy and when it was going to start and when it was going to be down here in Hamilton. And so I joined. I also contacted, and so on this Facebook page, there were all these people that were going down to Wellington, and I spotted one of my friends from Auckland. So I met up with her in Hamilton. And I think that was on February the 6th. And February the 7th, we joined the convoy and we started heading down to Wellington. And I think there was a stopover in Palmerston North. And then on the 8th, I think, Tuesday, we rolled into Wellington. So that was my journey. But I was very, very keen to join. It was just myself and my dog on our camper.
Awesome. And were you in Houston visiting there, or had you been staying there for some time?
I was there for about 4 days. It was a business trip.
Yeah, I can relate. I got back to New Zealand in March of 2020. I'd been overseas for nearly 20 years and came back because of the whole thing and arrived during the lockdown. And yeah, it was quite a shock to the system. And so you came down on the convoy, and then Rawinia is in the movie, comes up next and says that you had the idea to start the kaumātua tent. And then between the two of you put that together. How did that come about?
The first kaumātua tent, I think it was, so we arrived on the Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning, the admin team were putting out these tents. And so I just sat in one of them and I claimed it as the kaumātua tent. The purpose of the kaumātua tent was for all of those that are, I call them the elderly and the wise, that were passing through, and it was a place for them to sit, to rest, to have a place to eat, and then to converse. That was the first kaumātua tent, and I know Rawinia was instrumental in getting the second one done. There was a second one near the stage, and ours was along that pathway there next to that block wall at Parliament.
Yeah, I became aware of it in the second, when it had moved to the second place. Someone came by the Hare Krishna tent and invited me to come and participate there, representing the Hare Krishna contingent or community within Freedom Village. And so I ended up in the tent every day at 10 a.m. And then there was sort of like it was very interesting for me. I mostly was just listening because I was like, what is happening? Who is everyone? What are we doing? And it was kind of like a space for that to kind of coalesce. And there were various conversations that took place in there, a lot of kōrero, people speaking. And it was kind of like it was a space, this was my experience of it, it was a space for people to speak and to hear and to understand each other. And a lot of people had this kind of sense of frustration of like, how come, no one's sort of seizing control and just telling everyone what to do. No one's in charge was kind of one stream of kind of frustration. But for myself being in there, I experienced it more of like, this is the the opportunity for us to understand each other, understand where everyone's coming from, because we had like a huge cross section of New Zealand, like pretty much every constituency within the country, all thrown together within moments in this place, in this crucible, under pressure. And we had to, I don't think there was any way we were going to come up with, the final answer within minutes. But I really appreciated the space that was created there for hearing and speaking.
I didn't spend that much time in the second tent. I was mainly going to the first tent that we had. But now and then I would go up to the second tent if someone mentioned there was a kaupapa or a topic that was going to be discussed. And when I went there, I saw, many people. Some I knew and many I didn't. But what I understood about that second kaumātua tent, it was another gathering of tribal members or anyone else that wanted to connect. They also had, they were fed and they were nourished, and they had resources. So that was really, really good. They had more than what we had in our first tent, but as long as we had seats and a table, we were happy where we were.
And you were there for the entire duration, right to the end of the occupation.
That's correct. So when we did arrive, and that was really amazing. Not only the convoy and the trip going to Wellington, the many people that were on the side of the roads, waving flags, and those that were in town and across the bridges. The convoy was very, very long. So it took a while to get in to Wellington. And so when you got in there, you just had to look for a park somewhere. So I was fortunate to find a park maybe 150 meters away. I was driving and I saw a space, so I parked in there. And so Riley, my dog, he looked after the camper, and I just walked over to the Parliament grounds, and I was so impressed with the amount of people that were there. We weren't intending on staying that long. We thought, well, we may stay overnight and maybe travel home. But then we saw tents coming out, and so we thought, well, must be they're going to stay. And I saw vehicles that were closer to Parliament, so I went down, jumped in my camper, and then I was able to park on there's Hill Street, and then there's the one that joins onto it. I've forgotten the name. It was right next to the light.
Where the food tent was?
Where the toilet ended up being. So there's Hill Street, and there's the one that comes onto it. I've forgotten the name of that street. But
yeah,
I was right.
That's not Molesworth, is it?
Molesworth is the one that goes across into town.
The big one, yeah.
Where the food tents are. But yeah, my memory is losing me with the other one. But we were right there on the lights, where the lights were in that intersection.
Okay.
You
stayed for the whole time.
Yeah, there were people guiding us to let us know, oh yeah, there's a park down there, and so they would try and bring everybody in closer to Parliament. And yes, I was there for the whole 23 days until we were removed.
Amazing.
I'm impressed for your courage to stay 21 days, despite the noise.
23.
23. Despite the noise and constantly people, creating a lot of havoc, not from inside the compartment or the protest area, but other incomers. You have to be very passionate to be like that.
We're still here.
Yeah,
the camera will just cut off every now and then.
I was quite fortunate. I really acknowledge those ones that were in tents. I had a self-contained camper van, and I was able to have showers in there and I would use the toilet if the toilets weren't working. I could cook. So I was really spoiled. My accommodation is nothing compared to many that were sleeping in cars, sleeping in tents, particularly when we had that storm. When we had that storm, I went in to have a look at the tent that we had, and we had all the clothes that they tried to put in there to keep them from being wet. So I spent that morning after the storm trying to separate the wet ones from the dry ones. And when people came, I was trying to give out. I said, "Look, help yourself. This is the dry lot, and these ones are wet, so I wouldn't touch those." And I looked out, on the Parliament grounds, and I saw tents scattered everywhere, and it was quite horrific. So my stay was, I was kind of spoiled compared to everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, this is the part where I wanted to extend into the future. In the movie, you speak about the role that tangata whenua, Māori, the people of the land, have to play in what I would say is like a great awakening in this country and around the world. I was going through my memories of today. Let me see if I can pull this up and show you this picture. My memories of today in history, the 17th of February, 2022. I'll get this picture up. And I found a photo, so one of you icons, of a man holding a sign. Okay, there's two sides to his sign, so I'm going to share both of them. Yeah, okay, so let's go with this one first. Share this tab instead, and then I'll switch to this view. So this sign here, it says, "Many days now occupying parliamentary grounds, a super spreader event, no masks, no cases, no deaths, but aroha and love, keeping good vibes up for all." In the small print around it, it says, "Light-hearted good New Zealanders, exposing government lies and corruption, and take down global elites' plan for humanity." At the bottom, "Peaceful soul brothers and sisters, for a new paradigm of love and goodwill, together as one in spirit." And on the other side of his, share this tab instead, it says, "We are spiritual beings having an earth experience. Be grateful and thankful that we are awakening to a new loving reality. Keep the faith, aroha nui." And around the top it says, "We are at a critical time in New Zealand and on our magnificent planet. Be love in action and become God conscious. Right thought, right word, right action. What goes around comes around. Keep your temple light." That was today, 2 years ago. I saw that sign and I was like, this guy gets it. And not only this guy gets it, but these people get it. Like, we get it. Like, that's why we're here. That's like, this is what's happening. And it wasn't just there. It was happening at the same time in Canada as well and other places around the world. There's like a great awakening taking place on the planet. And in your speaking and your presence there is a powerful statement that tangata whenua have a key, crucial role to play in this awakening and the future of New Zealand. So I wanted to invite you to speak to that, if you would.
One of the things I acknowledge when entering the parliamentary grounds, and because we were locked down and isolated so long, labels weren't there. Like, I wasn't a Māori and the other person wasn't an Indian or Chinese. We were just people wanting to be together. And in terms of your questions, in terms of, in my opinion, Māori, as a people, we have an obligation. There's been a lot of talk about the Treaty of Waitangi or Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We have an obligation as the host to to look after those that come into Aotearoa. We still have to do that today if we're going to abide by Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We acknowledge those visitors as tangata tiriti because they came, in our opinion, they came to New Zealand through that obligation. So we, in my opinion, we are one of the keys of trying to keep that ongoing in terms of respect, in terms of obligation, in terms of love and peace. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that going into the parliamentary grounds and listening to the music from the Hare Krishna people, it was really uplifting, particularly when we had that last, I think it was on the 10th, that Hold the Line, and just listening to that music, bringing that harmony and essence to the people while that was happening. Not sure whether that's answering your question or not.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely resonate with everything that you're saying. That was my experience there. The oneness of it, the unity, the kotahitanga, the unity and the community, and the sense that these kinds of divisions that are being fostered in the nation, like pitting one group of people against another, whether it's like Māori against Pākehā, or, you know, immigrants against people who are born here, or any of these kind of divisions that are being done. At the end of the day, there's a more fundamental division there, in that, you know, we all got locked down and coerced into, you know, trying to get us to inject this thing into us.
Yeah.
And then there were people who were, you know, caught up, involved in doing that. And then there are some people out there who are like making it happen. And like, you know, like it was a good example. What we saw there, there was like on the February the 10th, you know, there were the protesters. Then there were the police on the front line there, and some of them even took off their uniforms and quit from being there. And those are the people we see. And then there were people that we didn't see who were behind them and who were sending them out and having them do that. And that was like a very clear division between people there. And I could see that wasn't a division between Pākehā and Māori. It wasn't a division between different religions. It was a different division, one that they don't tell you about, one that's not put into the newspaper or on the television. And, you know, I had like a te reo Māori immersion experience there in the village, Waiata, Karakia, you know, like learning to sing songs. It was one of the things I loved the most was there was like Machu and others leading on the stage, and I was like, I think I'm in a kohanga reo. I think I'm like in kindergarten, because we were doing like these songs that were like obviously I learned te aroha, but there was this other one, Turanga Waiwai. I think it was like, do you know the one I mean? It's like it's kind of like touching your head and touching your, I think it was a song about like the different parts of your body, to learn the names of the parts of your body in te reo Māori. So we were singing that as well. And I loved it. It was just absolutely amazing, the experience.
I was going to say that I think you mentioned earlier, people were asking, so what's happening? You know, is there a plan? The magnitude of the amount of people that went there, I think it went really quite well. Yes, there was a bit of confusion about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and I think in the earlier stages there were certain groups that were pushing their narrative in terms of being more aggressive rather than being passive, and going there and doing what we are supposed to do. And that was quite a challenge for those that could see that not working. And but it was a really big event to organize. I don't know how many thousands and thousands of people that went through it, but what I could see, it was a lot. And whoever organized it or came together, you know, they did an amazing job.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible to see how the organization sort of took place. There was like, in a sense, no one was in control. No one person was like, you know, there was no head of the. It was more like a starfish than a spider. You know, a starfish, you can cut off its legs and then another starfish will grow out of the legs. Whereas with a spider, if you cut off the legs of the spider, then, you know, the spider just dies. But a starfish, it's like, yeah, it was like the intelligence of the community was everywhere. It was located in everywhere. And that was the orientation that I took myself. I was just like, at a certain point, I realized that the actual kaupapa of this coming together, the actual purpose here is for us to meet each other and to get to know each other and to be able to know in the future when what's coming is like, these are the people I can trust, and to understand each other. I was like, that's what's actually happening here. And I said to a few people, I said, you know what, if I was on the other side, like the guys behind the police sending the police out, I would never let all of these people meet each other in the same place like this unless I was going to drop napalm on all of them at once. Because this is literally the worst thing that could happen, is you get all the most committed, most courageous people in the country and put them in one place together for 3 weeks. I mean, it's like you couldn't plan it better.
I agree, and in saying that, I think the Labor government or all of those parliamentarians that were sitting in Parliament, they needed to get us out, because their narrative of wearing a mask and the virus, it all went out the door because we weren't dying in mass numbers.
Yes. Instead, people were becoming more stronger, but were becoming more connected. And from that, there is a birth of courageous leaders, people you can trust, people that are in the same vibe or
kaupapa
vibe, connection for the future. And you mentioned something about like, we have the obligation, it's basically a duty, and your culture is a duty to, as a host, to care for these people that are coming. It's quite similar to the Vedic culture. Can you take us a little bit more into your culture of like, why is it a duty? What is the significance of in your culture to look after guests? And can you please explain more about that?
In our culture, we like, if I met you, I firstly, I want to know where you are from before I need to know your name. And that's one of the things we do. We try and connect. We try and connect with people, even with people that we don't know. And we spend the time to try and listen to where they come from, and then who they are, and who their parents are, and then their ancestors. And so that is one of the first things we do. We do that when we have people visiting our marae or our village. We have what we call a pōwhiri. A pōwhiri is when we have us as hosts and we have visitors come, and they come to our village, and then there's a protocol that we do in terms of we sitting on one side and the visitors sitting on the other side, and we try and find out who they are and where they come from, and then we host them. So that's probably in a nutshell what we do. And we not only do that under the obligations of the treaty or covenant that we have that obligation as a person. Yeah, I hope I've explained it in brief.
because of well, basically it's kind of similar in South America as well. I'm South American, and the Inca culture, that's the one thing that we learn. You know, the guests are basically, you have to treat them with so much care, provide a lot for them.
Yep.
There are many reasons for that. You don't know who they are in a sense of like what stage in life they are. Maybe they're going through a lot of hellish situations. Maybe they're just exploring life. You don't know. So by bringing them together, when you offer your home, your food, and you make them very comfortable, it's because every soul is going through different transitions, right?
Yeah.
And we contribute in that way for them to have an experience of they are taken care of in this world, and we are here to be helpful for them. That is the Inca culture. And I can see in the Maori culture that this is something that you want to transmit from generation to generation and generation, so that still lives in every family and every generation. Is that correct to say?
That is correct. And one of the difficulties that we have, even though we have that welcome and host and porphyry, it's not reflected when new people enter New Zealand. We don't have any control over letting them know who we are, even letting them know about the treaty. So it is really quite difficult for us. I have worked with a lot of non-Māori groups, but particularly migrants, and I've worked with them, and many of them tell me that when they come to New Zealand, this was it may be better now, but prior to the year 2000, many of them didn't know that Māori even lived here, and they had no knowledge of the treaty or the covenant that we had. So it has made it difficult, and it hasn't really improved that much as well.
Mm-hmm. It is for us human beings, it's very important to be connected to people, regardless where they come from, what life situations they're going through. The most important part is for us to let the other know that we are here.
Yeah.
If you need us, we are here. So that connection of like, it's not in the bodily conception of life or cultural conception only, but it's more in the spiritual connection of like, I'm here, I'm a human like you. And what do you think it is important right now? Because it sounds very amazing that anyone that comes to New Zealand that are not aware of the culture and they have that being received in that way, it's a bit more, it's welcoming. It's like, I matter, I am important, I am seen.
So sometimes last year I had a family from Egypt, and the wife found me on LinkedIn, and she started to message me and to communicate with me and to let me know that her and her husband was arriving in New Zealand and would be staying in our hometown, or Hamilton. And when she arrived, she then invited me to have dinner with her and her husband in their new home in Hamilton. And the reason why she did this, she wanted to find out more about Māori. And so I've had about 2 or 3 visits with them, and they're very passionate in learning about the people of the land, or tangata whenua. So what you're saying is absolutely correct. There are people that want to know, but just don't know how to go about it. And this couple from Egypt was quite lucky, or maybe fortunate. Maybe I was fortunate to find me on LinkedIn, and then we're able to connect.
Mm, mm,
And one of the other things too, it's a spiritual journey as well. And if you have the spiritual forwardness to try and make that happen, because I think you need that when you sit in front of people that you don't know. It's not only about listening, but also about the spiritual connection, and the feeling that you have, once you build that relationship and rapport. And these two people from Egypt, we have a very good connection.
mm. My observation these days, I work with people, and me coming from a culture where is family oriented, and the opulence is friendship for us.
Yeah.
Developing friendship and just have them like happy or comfortable or just relaxed. It's very important.
Yeah.
Because as I mentioned before, because we don't know what they're going through in their lives.
Yeah.
And having someone to receive them or have them in that space, it feels like I'm alive again in this world. My observation is in the Western world, there is a lot of distance. There's, for some reason, they like to have this distance. They're afraid. I want to speak for everybody else, but there is this sense of like, I don't want to connect with you. I want you to be separate from me. Yet, they are in the majority, they are suffering with so many mental issues, psychological issues, because they cannot find the force of connection, what actually means to connect, and the level where you can see a person for who or he or she is as a person, rather than the body type, the skin color.
Yeah.
So as a senior person, what would you like to transfer for the new generation to understand what is the importance of your culture?
We talk about we call it pōpoia ngā mokopuna moa pōpō. So it's about ensuring that our grandchildren are being encouraged to learn the ways that our ancestors have taught us in terms of communicating and linking to one another, and to be respectful to one another, and to understand one another. And I think that's one of the things that we achieved during the occupation in Wellington. It's about understanding, and respect goes a long way. And sadly, I see a lot within my community and within my people. Respect isn't there as much as it was when I was growing up. That's kind of how I see it from an elderly person. But also and I think, as you mentioned, to try and see and understand what's going on, because there's a lot of things going on with people. And rather than judge, just listen and I try and put myself in their shoes and try and find ways to respond in the way that they have control of whatever they are doing and need to do. I kind of look at it that way. There are many of my age that try to do our best within the community, and there are many of my age that are lost, that are they have other things that they have to rely on in terms of drugs and alcohol and things like that. Society, I suppose in their opinion isn't treating them properly because they have all these types of issues. But overall, in myself, I'm quite happy in what I'm able to achieve. This probably could be more, but making that communication with you and many others, and what had inspired me and what led from the occupation in 2020 is that I'm now connected with quite a few groups. The River of Freedom film is probably helped that a bit. But there are some amazing people like yourselves out there that are making things happen.
You're a movie star.
I didn't pan it that way, but I just wanted to help. I just wanted to help Gayleen and others, and try and put forward the truth that was being portrayed at that occupation, rather than what the media was putting out there.
Mm.
Mm.
And in your culture, there is a lot of warriors.
There is a lot of warriors. We all have our place, I suppose, in pushing our culture forward. I'm more of the passive type, behind the scenes and follow the leaders. Well, I try and look for the leaders to follow first. Yeah, so happy. I was so happy and honored to be there in 2020, and which has paved the pathway to what I'm doing today.
Mm. So we've been I think maybe a few months back we were listening I don't know if it was a book about Maori and different iwis.
Yeah.
And my experience that different iwis have different type of like personality. You know, some of them are more passive, other ones are more aggressive and warriors, you know, in the battle. I'm here, I'm fighting, and I will fight.
Yes.
And it's brilliant to see that, because in the Vedic culture we have 4 castes,
Orders, yeah.
orders. Can you explain that, mi amor?
Yeah, like 4 roles there's in society. So you have the brahmanas, who are like the spiritual intellectuals. They're like, they give guidance. They don't get involved in anything. They're not involved in politics. They're not involved in business, but they just give guidance. And because they're not involved in politics or business, they're incorruptible because they can't be paid off.
Yeah.
And then you have the Kshatriyas, who are like the kings or chiefs, and the warriors. And then and they take their guidance from the brahmanas, and then they sustain the brahmanas as a matter of duty. And that allows the brahmanas to be detached. The Kshatriyas are like the kings, the warriors. Then you have the Vaishyas, who are farmers and business, and so they take care of that aspect of things. And then there are the Shudras, who are just like people, you know, the general mass. Most people today would classify as that. They're just people working, and you know, they're just like, hey, you know, I just do my job and I'm good at it. Like they might be like a potter, or you know, a carpenter, or anything like that, and they're not too worried about the big picture. It's like that's someone else's problem, as long as they make sure that everything's running okay. I'm just like, you know, make things tick over. Yeah, so those are the 4 kind of orders.
I'm currently with a group that's making a revival. We used to call it, we call it the priesthood, because back in 1907 there was the Tohunga Suppression Act, and those were the spiritual ones that were focused on mentoring others. And likewise, they don't get involved in political stuff, but they were tohunga, or spiritual leaders that would guide and support the chiefs and then the people. And so, as I mentioned, they were called tohunga, and then there was a Tohunga Act that was put forward, which meant that they were never to practice. But there's a revival happening at the moment to put those people back into their positions as tohunga, spiritual leaders, and high priest.
Yeah, awesome. That is the segment of society that, according to the Vedic scriptures, those are the ones that the demons take out in order to destroy the society. Because once you take them out, it's like cutting the head off the society. It becomes headless and it goes out of control. And then what happens then is that your politician, your political leaders, and your business leaders go completely out of control, and they're corruptible at that point because they're no longer following spiritual guidance. So they're just after power, money, and then people can just offer them those things, and they end up taking them and acting against the interests of their own people.
And the other thing we can observe as well in these priest brackets, there are some priests or whatever you want to, other names for them, but they are involved in politics. They are bringing God, talking about God and how should be, one direction in life and how should we behaving, what are the codes and so and so, like those God-given principles. However, in the other side, they're acting as politicians. So it is kind of conflicting for me. Are you wearing the hat of a spiritual person that is transmitting actually the words of God to the humanity, or are you into money making and power grabbing thing? Which hat are you wearing? Because it's two conflicting things, and that is one of the signs of Kali Yuga, in
the current age.
Current age. And what is the symptoms of the current age is hypocrisy. What's the other one? Hypocrisy. Irreligion. Quarrel. Fighting. Disagreements, and that is called Kali Yuga, and that's where we're going through, and we can actually observe that. Priests, they just want to be powerful, and God says this, and they use the name of God to impose things that they want, and people are so confused. Like, okay, you're talking about God, we love God, so you must be God, God sent person, so we have to bow down to you. But hey, you are into politics, and hey, you're into money. So they create so much conflict in the minds of people. In this case, many of these people are very easily manipulated because we're not using what the scriptures are saying. So that's why we need a priest that actually are priests, 100% doing the job of a priest, just being the channel of what God said. And instructing us to the society. And that's what is happening, destruction of religion, destruction of priests. Principles of God-given principles doesn't exist anymore. They're already tinted, changed.
I totally agree with you. The priest has to be really focused on what they are not only what they are doing, but what they are receiving, from God, or we call it Io Matua. So that's our supreme being. And so the other thing that people need to be mindful of is always question the priest to make sure that they are doing or saying what they're supposed to do. Because I have seen, and I agree with you, that it can be used as to control people. Oh, God told me you got to do this, and you've got to buy me this, something like that. As soon as they say that, then you question. Can you be a bit more specific what God said?
Right. And you mentioned about your ancestors, your connection to your ancestors. Obviously, you don't know them unless you met them in this lifetime, right? Your grandparents, your great-grandparents. And behind that, sometimes we don't have any more connection to them. So what is the importance of being connected to your ancestors or predecessors? Predecessors.
Ancestors.
The ancestors sometimes help us when we do our our whakapapa or our genealogy and we're sharing it with people, they can connect. They may not connect to the first or second generation, but they may connect to the third generation. So part of that is connecting. And part of that is also connecting not only to people, but connections to our land. So I normally when I go to a meeting, it doesn't matter where that meeting is in New Zealand, when we start to do our whakapapa, our genealogy, each of us, then we start to connect with one another. That's how we connect. And sometimes we don't know we connect to that place. And by sharing our ancestors' genealogy, we then find a connection. So in Wellington, and I think when I first come on, you had a photo of a pōwhiri, and there was a gentleman there with a toko, a stick. And
Yes.
the next day, there was karakia, and he mentioned to the people that I was from Wellington. And I didn't know I was from Wellington because I was thinking to myself, I'm not from here. But later I found out, that gentleman there. Later I found out that I did have a connection to Wellington because I had to then check my genealogy, and there was someone there from one of my tribes, and he says, "Oh, we're actually from here through this line." So that's probably I'm trying to explain it that way.
Incredible.
Brilliant.
In Bhagavad Gita, in the very beginning, in the first chapter, Arjuna, he's on a battlefield. Bhagavad Gita is spoken on a battlefield, and the problem that Arjuna has is he's on a battlefield and his family is on both sides, and his grandfather is on the other side. And then he says, "I can't fight because I can't fight against my elders."
Yeah.
And then he says to Krishna, he says, "I have heard from the elders." And then what he says next means two different things. He says, "I have heard from the elders that those who destroy the family go to hell." But it also means those whose family is destroyed go to hell. It means both. It means if you destroy the family, you go to hell. And it also means if your family is destroyed, you go to hell. So he says to Krishna, "I can't fight because I've heard from the elders that if my family is destroyed, I go to hell. And if I destroy the family, I go to hell." So it's like, this is very bad. I can't fight. But that point there that he makes at the beginning is so fundamental. And what we can see, Dana Devi was saying just before about how people from the West, or you could call them the English, whatever, are very individualistic and divorced from their family tradition. After reflecting on it and looking at it, it seems to me that there is a force on this planet that is actually out to destroy the family tradition and people's connection to each other and to themselves and to their ancestors. And it has like attacked certain peoples and then used them to travel to other countries and started to attack people. It's kind of like a virus in a sense. And it's like going crazy on the planet right now. It's been doing it for at least, Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, said for the last 200 years, it's been like taking control of humanity. And that's what we're seeing happening. The lockdowns, the isolation, it's all the same, coming from the same energy.
The destruction of our children as well. We can see that, not only by the way they are indoctrinated in the schools about sexuality, about being more conscious about their body. It's beyond, because the body will die anyways. But what remains is the person and what the person has, the experience the person has lived for whatever years. And that consciousness, they stay at the time of death, will carry for the next life. and then they will come with whatever burden they created in the previous life. And now they are given a new life, with a new body, they grow, and then they're leaving the new burden, and then they're creating new burden. And that is exactly the aim of the demonic forces, we can call it. So in Christianity, they call it satanic forces. And so we can see that. And in your culture, it's very important to be in protection of your grandkids.
Yeah.
And not only physically, but spiritually, because we are spiritual beings after all. There's nothing else where we have temporary body for maybe 80, 70, whatever years, but our spirits will always be transmuting in whatever lives we're going to take birth, or places we're going to take birth. How do you, you say you are in, having communities that you go and you are connected to. How are you doing the job of connecting or protecting your grandchildren?
I think our future is really, really important. And even though I don't have my grandchildren here, I believe what I'm doing is going to impact on them. And so I just wanting to make society a better place for them. When I do get to them, when I do meet with them and their parents or my children, I let them know what I'm doing. They are all familiar about the reasons why I went to Wellington. And I do have some children that didn't take the vaccine, that are very aware of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And they're proud of me of doing that. So it's about doing whatever I can to have a better society for them. I know it's a big task, but if we pull together and slowly but surely, get the message out about, one, respecting one another, two, being a host to one another as much as possible. And I just like what Sitapati was saying about, we don't know the people that we meet, particularly in Māoridom. We could be connected, and we most probably are connected with each other. And it's about realizing that when we do talk to one another, that we have a connection and that we have to be respectful to one another and try and listen and understand one another.
I wanted to show you some of the artwork that we did in Profest. You mentioned kaumātua, and we had one of the Hare Krishna devotees who came down from he's in Whangarei now, Muchakunda. He's a graffiti artist, and so he did a lot of graffiti around the traps there. Let me bring it up. So this is one that he did on the blocks down near the railway station, kaumātua kore.
Wow.
And he did another couple of pieces that were really beautiful. This one here, this is great. And the mandates. So he spray painted this block, aroha.
Very good
which
artist.
Means, yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, which is the Te Reo Māori word for love. And then inside here, he's written, this is Devanagari, an alphabet, like an alphabet that's used for Indic languages. It says Sri Radhe, which is
Sanskrit.
It's Sanskrit, and it's kind of a confidential truth of the absolute truth that God is neither exclusively male nor female, but since God is the source of everything, and we see that in the world there is masculine and feminine, God is the source of masculinity and femininity, and so that aspect of God that is the source of all femininity, the divine feminine, that's in Sanskrit Sri Radhe. So we kind
That's
of
good.
connected those two together. There's another one that he did along the same lines. It was kind of like that was the kaupapa.
Mm.
That's what we were creating. That's what it looked like inside the Freedom Village. And then there was just another couple of this was a really beautiful one he did, Govinda. It's a name of God that means one who pleases, gives pleasure to the senses, and also to the cows. Cows are a very sacred animal to devotees, and God is the source of all pleasure. And then there was these two pieces here, another one that he did along the same lines, Aroha, and then this one. I asked him to do this one. Actually, this is a Manakitanga. Yeah, you were speaking about respect.
Yeah.
And this, perhaps could you create for people who are watching this, what is Manakitanga?
So mana. So if I just break it down, mana is mana means that you have you are recognized as having some positive status in life. So that's what mana is. Then there's aki. Aki is a word that in terms of support. Tanga is the ability to carry out that. So mana is recognizing that a person has real positive vibes. He or she is a person that is recognized as doing something good. Aki is the supporting part, and tanga is carrying out that action.
Manakitanga. Yeah. I think there were three. There was Kotahitanga. Perhaps could you create for us what is Kotahitanga?
Kotahi means one or oneness. Tanga is the ability to carry it out.
Kotahitanga. The River of Freedom movie begins with a shot of someone walking through a tunnel up at
right.
Cape Reinga, and on the back it says Kotahitanga movement.
Yes,
So
every
that
time you see tanga at the end of a word, it means the action of it, the action of the words prior to it.
Okay. So like creating unity, creating oneness, or being
I think it's
one
more
together.
being one. Yeah. Because being is more about your life force, who you are, your spark of life. Or your statement or your...
Well, yeah, if you look at tanga te whenua, people of the land, we say human beings, right? Not human doings. So tanga.
Being, yeah.
I think there were three. There was Kotahitanga, Manakitanga, and then there was another one. There were three that go together.
Not sure what it is.
I don't know what the other one is. It'll come to me later. But yeah, I saw there was my very favorite thing that was there was this. I keep it close. It's inside this book, which is called Relationships That Work, The Power of Conscious Living. And inside that book, I have this. Kotahitanga. And Manakitanga. Yeah. In one together. And that was the kaupapa of Profest for me with those two things. And so in our was Aroha, Manakitanga, Kotahitanga. And so in the artwork that we expressed there, we created that. Muchikunda did a great job of creating that.
It was all about pulling everything together. And I think for me, when I first arrived, all those things were there. It was just absolutely amazing for me.
Can you speak a bit about your connection to land? Why is land very important in your culture?
Why is land very important? Well, we talk about two deities or gods, Rangi Nui and Papa Tūnuku. Rangi Nui can be interpreted as the Sky Father, and Papa Tūnuku, the Earth Mother. So land is really important in the first instance to look after the land. We don't actually own the land. We are just what we call kaitiakitanga. Kaitiakitanga is the ability to take care of. That's why land is really, really important. If you don't look after the land, then the land can't look after you. We have whakatauki or proverbs, and it goes like this. Ko te whenua, ko au te whenua, ko te whenua ko au. I am the land and the land is me. And another one, ko au te awa, ko te awa ko au. I am the river and the river is me. So there's a real connection that we have with the land, and it's really, really important to, as I mentioned, to acknowledge the land, to nourish the land, to look after the land. And if we do that, then the land can look after us.
I love the significance of that, because in the Inca culture, also in the Vedic culture, in the Inca culture, the water is a mother to us. The earth is a mother to us. The sun is a father. And the stars are our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And what else? The air, the air is a father to us. So they are worshipable. So in South America, in the Inca culture, we worship the earth, we worship the water, we worship the wind, we worship the sun. Because without them, we have no existence in this life.
Yes.
Whatsoever. Therefore, we pray and we take the blessings of them, and by giving offerings, you saying thank you to them. And it's in the Vedic culture. Can you explain more about the Vedic culture, mi amor?
Yeah, sure. In the Vedic culture, there are 7 mothers. One is the mother who gives birth to us. Let me see if I can get all 7 here.
Mm-hmm.
The mother who gives birth to us, any woman who nurses you as a baby, the wife of the king, the wife of the spiritual teacher, the cow, because we drink the cow's milk, so therefore she's our mother. The earth, that's 6, and there's a 7th one. It'll come to me later. Those 7, but along the coming to me later thing, the 3 things are manakitanga, kotahitanga, and kaitiakitanga.
It eventually came out, didn't it?
It arose, yeah. It just arose in the space of the conversation. Yeah, but the earth is one of the 7 mothers, because we're born from the earth, and we're here in Taranaki and growing food on our land and eating it. It's incredible to me. Like how, last night we were eating corn, and it's there. It's a whole corn cob, and it's got all the little kernels and everything on it. They're yellow and it's sweet and everything. I'm like, this literally came out of the dirt. Like somehow, some intelligence, you put the seed in there, and then it like somehow draws the corn out of the earth. Like literally everything is coming out of the earth. Like, how does that happen? That's mystical. The corn was somehow in the earth, and then somehow through this intelligence and the plant, it came out. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Hang on, I just want to say one more thing. Like people are like, oh, Elon Musk, he's making this, Neuralink and the virtual reality and everything. I'm like, dude, God has made dirt, and it can literally produce everything, including people's bodies. Like, it's just out of the dirt, the earth, the soil. Yeah, amazing.
Yes.
And with our bodies, we've got the most amazing pharmaceutical within our bodies to take care of us. It's if you look at like I'm 67, so for 67 years my body has helped to ward off whatever viruses come my way. Mm.
And talking about body, and there's two things. One is the medicine in Maori culture they use, and the other question
Rongo?
is not specific to that one.
I think that's the name though, isn't it?
And the other one, because you have connection to your ancestors, then this is my concoction. Then you believe in reincarnation. Can you say something about that?
Two things: the medicine
Yeah.
and any idea about or concept
Yeah.
of reincarnation. Yeah.
I know that the medicine in our dialect is rongoa.
Rongoa.
Rongoa. That's in our area. We call it rongoa. So that's the medicine part. Reincarnation. We believe that we go back to our ancestors. There are some that say that you come back as someone else, and that's normally proven when the child grows up and then they know all this information. And so it's believed that that person is the reincarnation of one of our ancestors. So that's what I've heard. I haven't actually seen it personally, but I have heard that.
That's quite common actually around the world, that everybody, all cultures seem to encounter that. Something really powerful that happened to me at Parliament was this lady, a Māori lady. I can't remember. I don't remember anything that I said to her before this. This is the only thing I remember is I'm standing there, I'm talking to her, and then she just looks me straight in the eyes and she says, "We are the ancestors, and we said that we would come back for this." And I was like, there were just moments there where people would speak to me like that, and it's like in this lifetime we're like playing a role, like we're actors, and we had like whatever the kind of circumstances of our life are in this lifetime, and then we all just went to Parliament, because I was like, everyone who was there, it was like I just met them like moments before, but we knew each other like at such a depth that she would just look at me and say, "We are the ancestors, and we said that we would come back for this." And I just say, "Yes, we did, and here we are." It was like, and at another level of my mind, I'm kind of looking at myself and just being like, what is going on here? And that was my experience of being there at ProFest, like for 3 weeks, was like that. I was like, what has happened? I've stepped through a portal into another dimension.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Question?
Yes, about the medicine. In our culture, there are different types of medicine. Most of the Incas resource into natural medicine, which is basically the plants, which have a lot of sacredness to them, and how they work in the body. And I see in Maori culture is similar as well. Not only you connected through the plants to heal someone, also we have healers. They can see beyond what we can see. And do you see that coming up in the Maori culture now, with all of these restrictions and laws passing by these ministers or parliamentary people not using or not being connected to the natural medicine?
So our rongoa was part of the Tohunga Suppression Act. So even though our tohunga or our spiritual leaders were banned, their way of practicing was banned as well. And so a lot of our people, including my grandmother, had to practice in secret. My grandmother used to have lots of people going to her home to get advice and to get healing, but they had to do it secretly. And I understand her sister was the same. And that was one of the interesting challenges for me, is when the isolation, the COVID narrative, and the vaccine came out. It was very challenging for me to see my my people gravitating to that narrative and that vaccine, knowing full well that we had rongoa that could take care of us. Yeah, so that's probably my statement around that.
The destruction of like the of cultures is one of the things, because there is a lot of similarities in different cultures. The Egyptians, the Mayans, the Aztecas, the Incas, the Maori, and I don't know any other subcultures. There are many subcultures in Peru and in the Middle East. There are subcultures, or even in the Western world, there are some cultures that are into natural medicine and reincarnation, different type of healing. They attack to these subcultures. They are way more spiritual and way more in tune with Mother Nature, we can call.
Yeah.
And for some reason, our maybe 2 generations or 3 generations or 4 generations back, they allow themselves to do that, to be stood on. And because of that, there has been a lot of rupture of our connection between people, connection with our land, connection with God, connection with nature. And
it's all turning around right now.
It is turning around, and I think we needed to go with force. Like, this is who we are, and no one can destroy who we are.
I think that a lot of Indigenous people have ways and means of looking after themselves, and also the non-Māori. I think many of us have forgotten who we are, where we come from, and the things that our ancestors, in terms of rongoa or healthy ways of living, just they've forgotten. They've forgotten about those kind of things, and they need to be reminded about, the things that were left behind for us. Starting from Rangi Nui, or the Sky Father, and Papatūnuku, the Earth Mother. It's there. It's just that many people have forgotten.
Thank you so much for your time, Anaru, and for having this conversation with us. Just to kind of wrap up things, because I want to respect your time and your day that you have ahead of you, and the other commitments that you have, and the people in life that you're interacting with. What do you want people to be left with? What's your message to people?
I think people need to think for themselves. People need to reflect and remember the things that are good. Remember, if they can, the things that were passed down from their ancestors that are not only good for them, but good for others. And to always not judge, to listen. And even if the person that you're listening to is maybe aggressive, you've got to understand. You've got to understand, you've got to smile, you've got to portray someone that they can see as a person that can help. And always try and build relationships with anybody, it doesn't matter who, and be a good host. Thank you.
Kaitiakitanga.
Yeah. And for the people of your own culture that are aware, that are hesitant, they are maybe in denial or
on the fence
or in ignorance about what actually means being part of the culture and what actually means being Maori. Can you speak to them, please?
Yeah, it's my obligation to talk with them, to let them know what I believe in, and some of the things that are not what our ancestors would have liked us to be involved in. I know it's not an easy task, but it's something that I have to do. You know, talk to my elders. Some of them know what I did and what I do and why I do it, but I just need to reiterate that with them and with everyone else, because you know we're the freedom fighters, Maori ones. They are well outnumbered, but that doesn't mean that we don't share with them what's happening, the impact that this will have on our people and others, and that we need to understand that, as I mentioned before, we've got to do what is right in terms of maintaining our culture, in terms of passing that on not only to our elders and the adults and the children, but also to our grandchildren and those grandchildren to come.
The legacy.
I know I said that I know I said we were wrapping it up now, but I wanted to ask you a question. This is like for some advice, perspective. In that battlefield, Arjuna, he says to Krishna that, how can I counterattack in battle men who are worthy of my respect, like Bhishma, my grandfather, or Dronacharya, my teacher? And I heard you saying there that, you know, speaking to your elders and that the freedom fighters among the Māori are outnumbered. And then for us, the Hare Krishnas who were there at Parliament, you know, we were like disavowed. And then all of the, you know, many of the senior leaders in the Hare Krishna movement like endorsed the jabs and, you know, recommended for people to take them. Like,
Yeah.
And, you know, 2 years down the track, they still are that, you know, it was wrong for us to be there at Parliament, and that it's wrong for anyone who's, you know, a member of the religion to like associate with us or to be involved in any way in the way that we think and everything. So I find myself like Arjuna on the other side of the battlefield from my elders and people who are, my elders. And that's something that I personally grapple with about finding myself. There's those two things at once. It's like, you know, you said we have to do the right thing. And then there's like also the elders and Manakitanga. You know, it's kind of like the two things are in conflict. And so that's something that I grapple with personally. So I wonder if you have any advice for me about that.
We have so I mentioned about Io Matua, who is the parentless one, and we have Io Matua and the parentless one, and we call it the void or the nothingness, is when creation started. And one of the things that happened was one of the gods, one of the children of Ranginui and Papatūnuku, Tāne Mahuta, travelled to Io Matua to retrieve what we call the 3 baskets of knowledge. The 3 baskets of knowledge was also planted on the earth. And then the baskets of knowledge was actually spread across the earth. And one of the things I would say to my elders was, so would Io Matua Te Kore and Tāne Nuiarangi and the baskets of knowledge, are we still adhering to that knowledge, or are we adhering to another new knowledge that has actually just been presented? Because within those baskets of knowledge, it talks about aspects of one, doing good to one another, 2, administering love, care, and understanding. And 3, the respect of all people. And so that's one of the first things I would say to my elders, because there is, within those 3 baskets, I'm sure it wouldn't have said to take a jab. It wouldn't have said be forced to wear a mask. It wouldn't have said if you don't take a jab, you lose your job. I would kind of explain it like that.
Mm.
It's a really nice way to understand that, like, you know, these 3 baskets of knowledge is adhere to the values and principles that are in harmony and care of other living entities, and any other new knowledge that are hearing that is against that, then it creates what has been created.
Well, the other thing that's very powerful about that is it's a very clear statement about, like, where is authority and where is our authority? Like, what is our lineage, and where do we come from, and who are we?
Mm.
We are also obligated, like the high priest or the tohunga, is to get our direction correct, and to discern what are the things that impact on that, in terms of who we listen to, having time to reflect and think, like what I did when I was lining up to get some groceries. I started to think, and then to see what am I doing and why am I doing it, and then I realized I've listened to a narrative and I'm just following it without even questioning it.
Mm.
Do we still adhere to that, or are we accepting a new source of authority, a new source of knowledge? It's very
It's very powerful. Absolutely powerful.
That's what they did, actually. Fundamentally, is they caused everyone to, like, completely shift. It's not about the facts, it's about where they're coming from and where you're receiving them, because once you change over to that, they can basically put anything in there now, and you've been disconnected from the ancestors.
The other thing, your advice, what brings to me, it's in my culture, our elders has to be respected. They are venerated, not only because they are our elders, because they sacrifice so much for us to have this life, a body, and because of that, we are grateful to them. Their wisdom they impart to us as youngsters, we are indebted to them, and we cannot disrespect them. That is my culture. It's hard for me to disrespect a person that is elder. However, my conflict is, why are you doing things that you're not meant to be doing for your own kin? I mean, your kinship, people. Why are you putting in danger people? Why are you creating a burden for people, for your own family, and in general? Therefore, how can I respect you? I cannot respect you anymore. It's heart-wrenching for me. But I have to stick to what I have learned from my ancestors. You cannot do harm to other people. I don't know what that even means. Harm means many things, right? And we are human beings. We make mistakes all the time.
So we want to offer respect to you, Matua, as one of the elders of our community. And thank you for your wisdom and your contribution and your courage and your commitment. And we think that it is by the grace of the parentless one, Io Matua, that we have met you in this lifetime. Thank you.
And likewise to you, Sitapati and Das and Dana Devi. Yeah, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. And that opportunity arose when we met at the parliamentary grounds this month on Saturday the 10th, last Saturday. And thank you for being on this podcast, and to everyone that is watching and listening, whoever you may be. Many blessings to you all, and thank you for inviting me to have this time to share. Ai, ngā mihi.
Namahe.
Namihi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. No. So
I don't know how.
We're gonna
I don't know how to hang up. So
Okay, we're gonna roll the credits and play some music. We'll keep in touch. Thank
okay
you.
then.
thank you.
Oh, that's cool.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Oh Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare